Absolutely, man. I think it's interesting because when we switch all this over the CHH community in particular, because there's a lot of dissension around the CHH community. There's a lot of talk about like numbers and so for example, there's kind of this mentality right now where like you can't really break out of Lecrae or Andy or KB's numbers, except maybe unless you're an F, which is no one. Yeah, so there's this sort of this mentality where it's like the ceiling is Lecrae, right? Those are his numbers. Those are sort of like everyone's going after the same number of fans. And they're really Lecrae's fans at this point. But you with the crew a few days ago, you talked about Paul Russell and Wande blowing up on TikTok and their music sort of just coming out of nowhere and appealing to a whole different audience than what we've got in CHH. So talk to us about how the mentality of like, oh, we're not going to beat Lecrae or Andy or KB's numbers. Talk about how that mentality affects the entire space.
Well, let me pull up an artist that I think is defying the odds, and he's not a CHH darling. If we look at the numbers of Nick D, Nick D has 139,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. I believe he's a Rapzilla freshman, or he was, or last year, this year, I don't remember. Nick D has 60,000 followers, 70,000 followers, he has 130,000 followers on TikTok, 20,000 subscribers. He's doing very well. And we create ceilings for ourselves, and then we compare ourselves amongst ourselves. Instead of saying, what if Chance the Rapper or Russ was the ceiling, right? Chance the Rapper or Russ, both independent artists, both are contrarian to the modern content of what rap is, right? Drug bars. By the way, that's not an endorsement for everything Russ and Chance the Rapper rap about. But I mean, Chance did a whole album about marriage, right? And people, whatever, they didn't like it. It wasn't critically acclaimed, but he did it.
Yeah.
Russ talks about not doing drugs, and he's very hated by a lot of the mainstream hip hop community. Talk about persecution, right? I mean, how like F Russ was like a hashtag on Twitter for a while, right? And again, not saying Russ is a Christian, and I'm not endorsing his worldview. But what I'm saying is, what if we looked at those guys as the ceiling? Macklemore, right? Contrarian, they're opposite of what's happening in society and culture. And I don't, again, not an endorsement of everything Macklemore supports. But what if those guys were the folks we said, you know, the ceiling is 10 million followers, not 2 million, or however many followers. I think Chance has at least 10 million Instagram followers, right? The ceiling is 500,000 sales, not, 50,000 sales. What if that became our ceiling, and then we reversed engineered from there and said, how did those guys become disruptive? And I think we sometimes embrace this guy, we sometimes don't. But Toby is an example of this. He was a Rapzilla freshman, though he doesn't claim it.
He just kind of dances around it every now and then.
But what did he do?
Yep.
He blew past everybody, right? And so what? Outside of what? Maybe Andy and maybe Lecrae and NF, who's bigger than Toby?
KB's probably pulling in about the same numbers, maybe.
And Toby's completely independent.
Right.
So, and by the way, Toby's numbers aren't crazy on Spotify. His numbers, let me see, look up his Spotify.
But he got a song with Royce the 5'9", and I don't know who else is doing that right now in our space.
So he just got to doing 500,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. When I was following him earlier, maybe a year or two ago, he was at like maybe 80,000 monthly listeners. So Toby's bubbled up big time. So Toby is someone who I think, and if I'm looking at his most popular songs, they all came out in the last 6 months. Eat, Try Jesus, which he did at, I think, at the NBA Finals or whatever. He performed that for an ad or something like that, or he did it on some big award show. I Need You To, and then it's the Breonna Taylor song that came out within the last 6 months, and I don't remember when Dope came out. I say all that to say, I mean, here you have someone who completely ignored the ceilings in Christian hip hop, completely ignored the stereotypical I have to go on Winter Jam and appeal to white evangelicals and youth group pastors and do the cliche song with the rock band and do the cliche song with the worship artist and do Winter Jam and do Rock and Roll Worship Tour. He did none of that, and he's doing very well. So I want to see dozens of Tobys.
Mhm.
And I think we will. I really believe that. I really believe the Paul Russells, the Nick D's, guys that aren't too close to CHH when you're right here to something, you can't see anything else. You're just here. So we're all just looking at each other with our, like, right what's in front of us, instead of saying, whoa, the world is way, way bigger. I'll give you a really practical example. My numbers are increasing on YouTube right now, but as proxy, all my other numbers are going up, right? My Spotify grew by 80% in followers this year. I didn't put out an album and still did, I think, almost 4 million streams, right? 4 million streams, never put out an album this year. For context, No Big Deal, who I would say is like the equivalent of where I'm at, right? But No Big Deal is, super dope, has put out a ton of music, right? Indie Tribe, he's on the Lecrae songs, big cosigns, all that stuff. And No Big Deal has 10, 11 million streams. I haven't put out an album this year. My stuff went up 80%. Why? Because I found a whole nother pocket of people on YouTube who are like, I don't even listen to Christian rap, but I'm a Christian and I like rap. And Ruslan, you make fire music and I'm just not getting into your music, right? That's available right now on TikTok. That's available right now on YouTube. That's available in a variety of places. And we're too busy looking at the same 100,000 fans that everybody's fighting for. Those Rapzilla fans, which are dope. Those Reach Records fans, which are dope.
Except when they're making comments. They're
making comments, right? Yeah. And there's so many people out there. Like think about it, man. We're talking about 100,000 fans. I don't know how many clicks Rapzilla gets, unique users. I don't know, right? I get more than a quarter of a million a month on my YouTube page. 300,000 unique users a month on my YouTube page, right? That's crazy to think about. I'm doing about 40 to 70,000 views a day. And most of my streams start with my music at the beginning of it, right? 1.1 million views a month. And it's only growing from here, 40,000 subscribers. Those aren't even like crazy numbers, but I say all that to say, there's a lot of people out there. 1 million people is a lot of people. 1 billion is 1,000 million. Okay. 1 million people is a lot of people. 1 billion is 1,000 million. There's an influx of 1 billion people hitting YouTube right now from places in the world that don't have fast speed internet or didn't have fast speed internet, didn't have smartphone. And there's an influx. Remember, there's 7 billion people in the world. 1 billion are hitting YouTube for the very first time, right? So YouTube and Instagram are the number 1, number 2, like social media, if you will. TikTok has 800 million monthly users, active monthly, 800 million. I think Instagram's at 1.5 billion. Let me see how many let's figure out how many active users. So I don't like to talk half truths. Active users on YouTube. 2 billion active users on YouTube. I think Instagram's 1.5. Excuse me, 1 billion active users. So YouTube is twice as big as Instagram. Think about that for a minute. And TikTok has 800 million active users. Okay. So TikTok is right there with Instagram, but YouTube's twice as big. So why am I saying all this? 1 billion is 1,000 million. 1 billion is 1,000 million. Meaning there are a lot of people in the world, like a lot of people, way more than we could ever imagine. And we're so obsessed with looking at the same 100,000, 100, 200,000. And we've set these arbitrary ceilings for our careers, for what we think success is. And yet folks are over here in the cut, getting the bag. I don't got to deal with no youth pastors. I don't got to deal with no shenanigans. I can just be in the cut. And I am even not that zoned into music right now. Like I just put out a song a month just because it's fun. Like making music with Ray Rock and Iman, those are my homies. It's fun, right? Like I'm not even revved up to really put some bread behind shooting content exclusively and natively for TikTok, shooting, you know what I mean? Like I'm just kind of goofing around and my numbers are going up. So like imagine what will happen for someone that's like a John Keith if he followed Nick D's model on TikTok and followed my model on YouTube, or a What Up RG if he was on YouTube and on, like, we could have multiple people with 2-3 million followers, right? Multiple rappers with 2-3 million, and they're not going to all be the same followers, because What Up RG could be more in the, you know, in the international market, and John Keith might be more in the general hip hop market. Like, who knows, right? But we're comparing ourselves amongst ourselves, and I think it does the community a disservice. I think it does the gospel a disservice, because the more Christian rappers we have, the more Christians in rap we have, whatever you want to call it, gospel goes first. People's palate towards the things of God changes, and we're set up primarily for it. I mean, like, I just had somebody come on, and not an endorsement of everything he said, but my guy Femi came on from the Dissect podcast, right, and made an argument that Kendrick Lamar's Damn album was a gospel album. I'm not endorsing the statement, but it's an interesting listen to hear him run through every single song and break down the verses that Kendrick quoted. And it's like bizarre. I'm like, what is this? But I say all that to say, Kendrick, Kanye, Chance, J. Cole, they're softening the palate of the rap consumer to be more open to the gospel, right? Just the rap consumer. Kanye goes on Joe Rogan and talks for 3.5 hours, by and large, a very positive interview, rave reviews, unapologetic about his faith in Jesus, about his born again experience. Society is shifting to be more open and less closed off to the idea of Jesus in culture. So there's a huge opportunity just where people's palate is in general. I think we have to seize that. And I think we can help people make money doing it and provide for our families and, you know, live comfortable lifestyles doing it.
Yeah, man, this has been great. I mean, it's been everything from the Kendrick talk with that guy from Dissect, Femi. If there's just like one more bit of wisdom on ethical wealth building, on growing your brand, anything that you could give to your fellow artists in the CHH community, even Rapzilla readers in general, because maybe they're trying to start a brand that's not necessarily music related. Go ahead, whatever you want to put out there, we're ready to hear you.
One, you have to know yourself and know what makes you you. If you don't know yourself, it's going to be difficult for you to know what your unique value proposition is to the marketplace. I'll give you a very tangible example. I'm an only child. I struggle with self-awareness. I've always had. I intentionally didn't want to talk about race and politics on my channel. I didn't even really want to talk about my faith. I was open about me being a Christian, but I didn't want to press on to those things. The things that got me the most amount of momentum and growth is faith, race, and politics, right? Which is really weird to think about. And so one, I would say self-awareness. I would say like understanding yourself. And here's the key. I'll give you 1 second. I'm texting my wife back.
Yeah.
Understanding yourself, understanding what you mean to the marketplace, but listening to what other people are saying about you. Very practical example. Lecrae retweeted something of mine. I said something like, I forgot the exact tweet. The tweet kind of popped off, and it was something more along the lines of like, you can love God. And let me pull it up, because again, I don't know this quote. I'll read the exact tweet, and then I'll tell you how this helped me so much. I've never actually told Lecrae this, but let me find the tweet. Hold on. Where is it? Okay, here it is. I said, one can be a patriot, acknowledge systemic racism, advocate for systemic changes, embrace and promote personal responsibility, acknowledge privilege while not viewing critical race theory or intersectionality as gospel truth, less tribalism, and more empathy plus critical thinking, right? Just tweeted it, didn't think nothing of it. Lecrae retweeted it, and he said, this man is a thinker right here. We need more people like this. Now, I could have just brushed over it, but what I thought was, here's somebody that's wildly successful. Here's somebody that I know is solid as a person. Here's somebody that has a ton of influence. And the thing he pointed out about me publicly was that I was a critical thinker. I was a thinker. And I said, you know what? Why am I afraid to talk about the nuance and all these things and be uncomfortable? Let me press into that. So self-awareness, but also listening to other people. So being unique and self-awareness, listening to other people. People pick up on people pick up on artists or influencers or brands that are incongruent or inconsistent or not authentic, especially today. This is the most marketed to generation ever. They can sniff you out if you're fake really quick. So if you know yourself, if you listen to what other people are telling you about yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, the blind spots, the sin, the positive things, and you're willing to press into your vantage point. So I would say that I think is huge, right? The second thing I would say is sometimes you just got to live life. Sometimes you just got to live life. Sometimes you just got to go through some stuff to find out who you really are. Sometimes you got to get married and have kids and try different things. And so many young entrepreneurs, it's cool to be an entrepreneur, but you don't really know what problem you're solving because you don't know what problem you've solved in yourself. I figured out my money issues, right? I figured out my independent career struggle issues. I figured out my YouTube struggles. I figured out quite a few things. Now I could talk about these things with confidence. I figured out my own thinking as just being a white dude in hip hop who's married to a black woman with a lot of black friends and family, and that thing. I figured that out, right? I'm figuring that out. So I've thought through a lot of this stuff. Therefore, I can have some value to add with nuanced conversations. But if you've never gone through anything and you haven't done anything, it's going to be difficult for somebody to build a personal brand or company or whatever. And so I think it's important just to note that. And that sometimes the best thing to do is actually go work for someone else, go sit with someone else, go help somebody else build their thing, develop all those skills, be an intrapreneur before you're an entrepreneur. See, I was an intrapreneur at my church for 2 years. I function as an entrepreneur inside of a bigger organization. And that is literally what set me up to do everything I'm doing now, from live stream broadcasting, which is what I was overseeing at the church, to content, to a little bit of music, to teaching, communicating. It was great. It was great for me. And I think a lot of people may find a lot of freedom and liberation in that right there. Just, you know what, let me work on being an intrapreneur for a season before I jump into being an entrepreneur, because no one gives a crap about your cool logo on a t-shirt. What does it mean? Like, what are you really trying to say, right? But when you've gone through some stuff and there's some pain there and there's some suffering there and there's some struggle there, usually that's the stuff that tends to translate better to connecting with more people. And all of this connects. Knowing yourself will help you find your micro tribe, your target audience. We say that a lot. What's your target audience? If you try to reach everybody, you're not going to reach anybody. What is your target audience? Your target audience is the version of you from 10 or 15 years ago that has not solved all the problems you've solved in the last decade. It's an easy way to figure out who your target audience is. But if you, Elijah, are 19, is your target audience 9-year-olds, right? Or are they 15-year-olds? Like, how do you figure that out, right? But maybe your target audience is 15-year-olds who haven't yet, walked through this part of sanctification in their life, and you blogging about it and writing about it can help people have a paradigm shift and work harder. And maybe that's how you kind of stumbled across that. And so I think all that connects together. So that would probably be my main advice. And then also, like, just don't be allergic to work. Don't be allergic to being willing to do hard things. If you're willing to do hard things, like learn stuff, like suffer, like be curious as a kid, like Jesus talks about having childlike faith. What if we apply childlike faith to childlike faith for our personal development, like childlike faith for the curiosity of, like, man, I wonder, how does the Spotify algorithm work? Let me figure it out. Let me spend a year trying to figure out, how does the YouTube algorithm work? Let me try to spend a year figuring out. Let me try different, right? If we approached our business with that degree of curiosity, I think we could do some great things. But we come with very firm, preconceived notions of how things work. And again, what you believe will determine how you behave. If you believe in this rigid, rough system, then that's how you're going to go. But if you realize that the world is changing fast, technology is changing everything, then it'll allow you to try out different stuff and be curious and have fun. And that's ultimately, like, we all want to honor God. We all want to love Jesus. We all want to love people. At least we should, if we're Christians, if we're in Jesus. And that to me is fun. Like, that to me is the dopest thing ever. Like, I remember what I was like before I was saved. I had substantially less fun. Now, I may have had some pleasure here or there, but I have way more fun and I have way more fulfillment, excitement, purpose to my life now on the other side of following Jesus. But it was a journey to get to where I'm at.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Those are all the written questions I had. If there's anything you want to ask, anything you want to put out there for the Rapzilla community, you're more than welcome. Thank you again. Again, this is my first interview, so I'm honored. Thank you for spitting it with me for a little bit.
Yeah, man, this was fun, bro. Thank you, man. Great idea and topic to do.
Appreciate it, man. I mean, you were the inspiration behind the whole thing, you and KB in particular. So it's a glory be to God at the end of the day, but thank you for your work.
Amen. That's what's up, man.